Have you ever worked so hard for something, only to feel like the harder you try, the further it slips away? What if the secret to success isn't grinding harder, but learning when to let go? You've been told to hustle harder, to outwork everyone, but what if real growth comes not from pushing, but from aligning, not from force, but from flow? Do you feel exhausted trying to control everything? Your job, your future, even people's opinions? The Stoics believed true power begins the moment you stop grasping for control and start mastering yourself. We live in a world that glorifies effort, endless effort, where success is measured by how busy you are, how many hours you grind, and how much you sacrifice. But what if that belief is the very thing holding you back? The ancient Stoics taught us something different, something powerful, that the real path to success, peace, and fulfillment doesn't come from controlling everything around you, but from aligning your actions with your purpose, and then letting go of what you cannot control. In this video, we'll explore the wisdom of Stoic philosophy and how to stop chasing, start aligning, and finally let life flow the way it's meant to. Life has a strange way of teaching us lessons, isn't it ironic? The more we try to control every tiny detail, the outcomes, the timing, the way people react, the more drained and frustrated we become. We map out our lives step by step, convinced that if we just try a bit harder, push a little more, never loosen our grip, eventually everything will fall neatly into place. But what if that belief is the very thing holding us back? What if the truth is the opposite? That real peace, real progress, begins the moment we stop forcing, stop clinging, and simply start trusting. Let that sink in for a moment. It's not about giving up, it's about realizing where your true power actually lies. Centuries ago, the Stoics understood this deeply. Marcus Aurelius once wrote about the quiet strength in accepting what comes naturally and not wasting precious energy fighting against the inevitable. He knew that trying to resist what's beyond our control only leads to pain. The real battle is within us, training our minds to focus on what we can shape and learning to release the rest. That's exactly what we're diving into today. A mindset shift that could change everything. Your relationships, your success, and more importantly, your peace of mind. Because let's be honest, if you're constantly stressed, always feeling like life is slipping through your fingers no matter what you do, there's a reason for that. You might be holding on too tightly to things that were never meant to be controlled in the first place. This isn't just another self-help talk. This goes deeper. It's about how to live with true confidence, how to move through life with a calm sense of certainty, instead of chasing everything with anxiety and doubt. And trust me, if you stay with me till the end of this video, you'll walk away with a perspective shift that just might change how you approach everything, not by chasing what you want, but by allowing it to come. But before we begin, just one small favor. If you find value in what we're doing here, hit that subscribe button. It takes less than a second, but it helps this message reach more people who truly need it. Alright, let's begin. We spend so much of our lives obsessing over results, waiting anxiously for that job offer, hoping that one relationship finally works out, wondering if all our effort will eventually pay off. We whisper to ourselves, just a bit more effort, just a bit more control, as if we could force the universe to bend to our will. But what usually happens, the more we cling to a specific outcome, the more anxious we become. The process, once meaningful, starts to feel heavy. Our happiness becomes completely tied to something we can't fully influence, and that's where we get stuck. The Stoics knew this trap well. Epictetus, one of their greatest teachers, said something powerful. We suffer not because of what happens, but because of our attachment to what we want to happen. In other words, don't wish for things to unfold your way, wish for them to unfold as they should. Simple words, profound wisdom. So, as we just uncovered, when you stop clinging to a specific outcome and start focusing on what you can control, something powerful shifts. You begin to feel lighter, happier, because happiness no longer depends on what might happen, but on how you choose to show up every single day. In other words, detach your joy from results. Anchor it instead in your process, your discipline, your effort, your mindset. That's where your true influence lies. Imagine an artist at work, not chasing perfection, not worrying about how their painting will be received, but simply immersed in the flow of each brushstroke. If they were obsessed with flawless execution or tangled in fear of judgment, their creativity would stall. But when they let go, when they paint for the sake of painting, something magical happens. They flow. The art almost creates itself, and ironically, that's when their best work emerges. That same truth applies to every part of life: your career, your relationships, your personal growth. The moment you release your grip on how it has to turn out, you free yourself to actually enjoy the path you're walking. And ironically, that's when things often work out even better than you planned. Nowhere is this more visible than in relationships. Have you ever watched someone try way too hard to impress someone else? Their energy becomes tight, anxious, maybe even a little desperate. And what happens? That forced effort actually pushes people away. But then you meet someone calm, grounded, not trying to get anything, just being fully themselves. And suddenly, they draw others in. Why? Because they aren't driven by fear. They're not chasing a specific outcome. They trust that what's meant to unfold. Well, that's the quiet power of detachment. Let's bring that same perspective into success. Far too many people believe that if they don't hit a specific goal by a certain age, they've failed. They treat life like a rigid checklist. Graduate by 22, land the dream job, earn this much by 30, get married, buy a house, achieve. But the truth, success isn't linear. It's messy, twists, detours, setbacks, and hidden opportunities that don't always look like wins at first. Asterisk, if you're clinging too tightly to one outcome, you may blind yourself to something even greater that life is quietly offering. So pause for a moment. Really ask yourself, what am I holding on to too tightly? Which goal, expectation, or outcome is creating more stress than inspiration? Now imagine what it would feel like to loosen your grip, not to quit, but to trust, to believe that, whatever happens, you'll adapt, and you'll be okay. That's what detachment really means. It's not about apathy. It's about emotional freedom, the ability to care deeply without needing things to turn out a specific way in order to feel peace. So how do you live that out? Start small. Each day, remind yourself, outcomes are not within your control, but your effort, your consistency, your mindset, those are next. Reframe your thoughts. Instead of saying, I need this to happen, try, I trust that whatever happens will serve my growth. And finally, come back to the now. The more you immerse yourself in the present, the less power the future holds over you. Life will challenge you. That's a guarantee. Some days everything flows. Other days, it feels like the universe is testing every ounce of your patience. But here's what separates those who crumble under pressure from those who thrive. It's not luck, it's mindset. Because if you don't learn to master your mind will master you. You can't control the economy. You can't control how others act. You can't predict every obstacle, but you can control how you respond. And that's where your real power lives. Shift from reacting to responding, and watch how everything begins to change. So far, we've explored the power of detachment and how mastering your mindset can unlock a deeper sense of peace, even in the face of uncertainty. Asterisk. But how exactly do we master that mindset when life throws us into chaos? Psychologist William James once said, "The greatest weapon against stress is our ability to choose one thought over another." That idea lies at the heart of Stoic philosophy. You see, you don't have to believe every thought that enters your mind. And you certainly don't have to let every hard moment define who you are. Instead, you can train your mind to see differently, to step back, reframe, and shift perspective. Let's look at this through a real example. Imagine you're going through a rough patch at work. Mistakes keep piling up. Your boss is breathing down your neck. You feel like you're constantly falling short. In that moment, it's easy to spiral. I'm terrible at this. I'll never improve. Maybe I'm just not cut out for this. That, right there, is a fixed mindset, and it locks you into self-doubt. But what if you flipped that thought? What if, instead, you said, I'm learning. Every mistake is teaching me something. This pressure is shaping me into someone stronger. That simple mental shift moves you into a growth mindset, one that sees setbacks as stepping stones. Suddenly, your struggle isn't failure, it's training. And that's exactly what the Stoics believed. Every difficulty is an invitation to practice patience, resilience, wisdom, and strength. Seneca once said, difficulties strengthen the mind, just as labor strengthens the body. Picture that for a moment. Each frustrating moment is like lifting mental weights. And just like physical strength, mental strength only grows through effort and resistance. Of course, let's be honest, this kind of mindset doesn't appear overnight. It's something you build slowly, through consistent practice. So where do you begin? Start by listening to your inner voice. What are you feeding your mind every day? Are you constantly replaying thoughts of fear, doubt, and negativity? Or are you starting to reframe, to recognize opportunity, to stay calm in the storm? Think of your mind as a garden. What you plant is what grows. Asterisk, if you keep planting fear and anxiety, that's exactly what will take root. But if you nurture seeds of strength, focus, and clarity, those are the qualities that will flourish. Another powerful habit: ground yourself in the present. So much of our stress comes from obsessing over the past or fearing what's ahead. But the only thing you ever truly own is this moment. So next time you feel overwhelmed, ask yourself, what's one small action I can take right now to move forward? That simple question has the power to pull you out of panic and back into purpose. Now, let's talk about one of the hardest virtues to practice: patience, especially when you're working towards something that truly matters. Waiting can feel unbearable. You've done the work, you've given your best, and yet, nothing seems to be moving. Frustrating, right? We live in a world that worships speed. We're told that if success doesn't happen fast, we're doing something wrong. But the truth, life unfolds on its own timeline, and trying to force progress before its time only leads to more pain. The Stoics understood this at a deep level. Epictetus once said, "No great thing is created suddenly." Just think about that. Anything truly meaningful, wisdom, strength, fulfillment takes time to develop. You can't force a tree to grow faster by tugging on its branches. Likewise, you can't force life to deliver on your timeline. There's a natural rhythm to all things, and when you trust that timing, you free yourself from the crushing pressure of trying to control it all. Picture a young artist. They work tirelessly, pouring heart and soul into their craft, day after day. But recognition doesn't come. Applause feels far away. What should they do? Asterisk. So, when that young artist, or any of us, reaches that point of doubt, the real test begins. They're faced with a choice. Do they give in to frustration, lose faith, and walk away? Or do they lean in, trusting that every brushstroke, every unnoticed effort, is shaping them for something greater, even if they can't see it yet? Those who choose trust, who stay committed to the process, are the ones who, in time, find themselves exactly where they're meant to be. But here's the thing. We live in a world that glorifies speed, fast food, fast internet, fast success. We've been conditioned to believe that if something doesn't happen quickly, it must not be worth the wait. But real things, lasting things, they take time. Relationships, personal growth, mastering any skill, all of these require one essential ingredient: patience. Socrates once said, "To do is to be." That simple phrase reminds us that the transformation lies in the doing, not just the outcome. Because if you're always focused on when something will happen, you miss the beauty of who you're becoming in the process. Still, let's be honest, patience isn't always easy, especially when you're giving your all and seeing no results. So how do you stay grounded when it feels like nothing's moving? The Stoics had a clear answer. Focus on what you can control. You may not be able to control the timing, but you can control your effort. You can keep showing up, keep refining your craft, keep growing into the person you're meant to be. And most importantly, you can trust that what is meant for you will arrive, not a moment too soon, and not a second too late. One of the greatest lessons in Stoicism is the quiet strength found in acceptance. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Accept the things to which fate binds you, and love the people with whom fate brings you together." That means instead of resisting life's timeline, we learn to embrace it. If things aren't happening as fast as you hoped, maybe it's because you're still becoming the person ready to receive them. Asterisk. And haven't you noticed? When you chase something too hard, a job, a relationship, success, it often feels like it slips further away. It's almost as if the universe can sense desperation, and in response, it pulls back. But when your actions are driven by calm, purpose, and quiet confidence, everything begins to align. That's the powerful difference between chasing and attracting, and the Stoics understood it deeply. Epictetus once said, "First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do." In other words, know who you are before you act. Because desperate action comes from fear. Fear of missing out, fear of failure, fear of not being enough. But purposeful action comes from clarity, from knowing what you stand for, and trusting your path. Let's paint a clearer picture. Imagine two people searching for a job. The first is desperate. They send out dozens of rushed applications, even to jobs they don't really want. Every rejection rattles them. Their energy is scattered, panicked, uncertain. The second person, they're focused. They know their strengths. They apply intentionally. They prepare without obsessing over quick results. They stay calm, centered. Who do you think is more likely to get hired? Exactly the one who moves with confidence and clarity, not the one fueled by fear. And this principle doesn't just apply to careers. It's just as true in relationships. If you enter a relationship from a place of desperation, afraid of being alone, craving validation, you often end up disappointed. But when you walk into a relationship with self-respect and quiet confidence, you attract something deeper, healthier, more real. So whether it's a job, a relationship, or a dream, when you move with purpose instead of fear, you attract what truly belongs to you, not by chasing, but by becoming. And that's exactly how more fulfilling, genuine connections are formed. People are naturally drawn to those who are grounded in themselves, not to those constantly reaching for attention or validation. There's something magnetic about a person who knows their worth, who walks with quiet confidence. It's not arrogance, it's alignment. The Greek philosopher Aristotle once spoke of eudaimonia, a state of living with purpose, virtue, and fulfillment. He believed that real happiness doesn't come from chasing external things, but from aligning your actions with your core values. When you act with wisdom, integrity, and intention, you don't need to force the outcome. It unfolds. You begin to move through life with clarity, making better decisions, and naturally filtering out the noise that doesn't serve your deeper goals. Picture a seasoned chess player. They don't panic. They don't react emotionally to every move. Their opponent makes they pause, observe, strategize, thinking 5 steps ahead. Now compare that to a beginner, reacting on impulse, rushing every decision, afraid to lose. Life operates in much the same way. If you're always reacting from fear, from urgency, your choices become chaotic. But when you take a breath, step back, and act with clarity, you get closer to building the life you actually want, not just the one you're pressured to pursue. So how do you shift from desperate to deliberate? First, get clear on your why. Ask yourself, am I doing this because I truly desire it, or because I'm afraid of not having it? Second, slow down. Desperation rushes. Purpose moves with patience. When you slow down, you create space to reflect, to choose, to align. And finally, trust yourself. You don't need to chase or force things into place. When your actions come from self-belief and alignment, opportunities begin to find you. Seneca once said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." Isn't that true? So much of our anxiety and desperation comes not from real problems, but from imagined fears. What if I fail? What if I'm not good enough? What if I fall behind? But the truth is, you're stronger than you think, and what's meant for you, you don't have to beg for it. You just need to show up with purpose, with confidence, and let life do its part. Have you ever felt drained from trying to control everything? You plan every detail. You push, you strategize. And yet, somehow, things still don't go the way you expected. It's exhausting, isn't it? You try to manage how people behave, shape the circumstances, predict every possible outcome, only to end up feeling even more stressed and less in control than ever before. The tighter you hold on, the more things slip through your fingers. And here's the paradox. The moment you let go, life begins to work in your favor. The Stoics understood this deeply. Epictetus once said, "Freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control." Think about that for a moment. Real freedom doesn't come from micromanaging every detail of your life. It doesn't come from obsessing over outcomes or controlling other people. It comes from releasing the need to control. The more energy you spend trying to manage things that aren't yours to manage, like someone else's opinion, someone else's timing, the more you drain yourself. So once you stop gripping life too tightly, once you let go of what you can't control, a new kind of freedom begins to emerge, one rooted in peace and inner power. But here's the next truth we must face. The more energy you spend obsessing over the past or stressing about the future, the more you drain yourself. Why? Because neither can be changed in this moment. They're not where your power lives. Real strength comes when you shift your focus to what is within your control, your thoughts, your actions, your responses. And when you start there, that's when everything begins to shift. Let's take relationships as an example. Have you ever tried to change someone? Maybe you wanted a friend, a partner, or even a family member to behave differently, to be more understanding, more supportive, more aligned with how you think things should be. But no matter how much you pushed, they stayed the same. That's because, plain and simple, people aren't ours to control. We can express our needs. We can set clear boundaries. We can choose who we allow into our space. But we cannot force someone to grow, to act, or to be what they're not ready or willing to be. And once you release that need, that emotional tug-of-war, something beautiful happens. You free yourself from constant frustration, and you allow relationships to evolve more naturally, more honestly. The same principle applies to success. So many people believe that if they just push harder, they'll get there faster. They confuse relentless effort with total control. But there's a key distinction between effort and obsession. Yes, work toward your goals with passion. Absolutely. But fixating on every detail, micromanaging timelines, or letting fear of failure drive you, that only builds resistance. It clouds your clarity. Seneca said it best: fate leads the willing and drags along the reluctant. In other words, when you resist life's natural flow, you suffer more. But when you move in harmony with it, when you stay rooted in what you can control, things unfold with far less friction. Imagine this. You've got a big interview coming up. You've researched, you've practiced, you're ready. But instead of trusting your preparation, you spiral into overthinking. What if they ask something I can't answer? What if I freeze? What if I don't get it? Suddenly your energy shifts from confidence to anxiety. You walk into that room tense, nervous, second-guessing every word. That need for control. It's working against you. Asterisk, but now picture the alternative. You take a deep breath. You remind yourself that you've done the work. You let go of needing a perfect outcome. Now you enter the room calm, grounded, fully present, and far more likely to succeed. So how do we begin to release this need for control? First, get radically honest about what is and isn't in your power. The Stoics called this the dichotomy of control, and it's still one of the most transformative mental tools we have. There are things you can influence, like your discipline, your choices, your mindset. And there are things you simply cannot, like other people's decisions, the weather, or sudden life twists. The more you waste energy on the uncontrollable, the more frustration you invite. Second, practice acceptance. Life won't always go the way you planned, but that doesn't mean it's going wrong. Sometimes, the detour is the destination in disguise. And third, build trust, not just in life, but in yourself. Trust that you can adapt. Trust that you can handle whatever comes, even if it's not what you imagined. Have you ever noticed how some people seem to attract opportunities, success, even happiness, effortlessly? It's not luck. It's not privilege. It's mindset. The way they think, the way they carry themselves, the way they speak to themselves and perceive the world. It all creates a magnetic energy of abundance. Meanwhile, people who obsess over what they lack often find themselves stuck in a cycle of struggle, no matter how hard they work. It's not that effort doesn't matter, it's that energy shapes outcomes. Asterisk, the Stoics understood this long before modern psychology confirmed it. Epictetus once said, "Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants." True abundance has nothing to do with accumulation. It's not about hoarding money, collecting trophies, or chasing endlessly after more. It's about realizing this powerful truth. You already have enough right now to live a meaningful, fulfilled life. And once you start to live from that place of internal richness, you'll be amazed at how the world begins to respond. Once you release the need to control everything, something beautiful starts to unfold. Your mindset begins to shift from fear to freedom. And when that shift happens, something else remarkable follows. You stop operating from a place of scarcity. You stop believing that there's never enough. And in that very moment, you create space for more to flow into your life effortlessly. Picture this. Two people walk into the exact same room. The first one immediately starts scanning for what they lack. They look around and compare themselves to everyone else. They feel like they're behind, like they'll never catch up. To them, success always feels out of reach. Their body language is closed off. Their words are laced with doubt. And without even realizing it, they push opportunities away. Now, the second person. They walk in with a quiet sense of certainty. They believe they already have enough knowledge, enough skill, and enough potential waiting to unfold. They don't chase, they connect. They don't beg, they belong. And as a result, they walk out of that room with new relationships, new insights, and new possibilities. Same room, same moment. What's the difference? One person is living in scarcity, the other in abundance. Asterisk. And this mindset doesn't just apply to money or career. It shapes the way you experience everything. Your relationships, your time, your joy. If you're always telling yourself there's never enough love, never enough time, never enough good people in the world, your brain will go out and look for proof that it's true. But when you choose to focus on abundance, you start to notice the small acts of kindness around you. You start to see potential in places you used to overlook, and you realize many of the blessings you've been chasing have been with you all along. Psychologist William James once said, "The greatest discovery of my generation is that a human being can alter his life by altering his attitudes." And he was right. If you constantly feel like you're lacking, your mind will magnify that lack. But if you train your brain to see what's working, to notice what's already here, your entire world begins to change. It's not magic, it's perception. What you focus on expands. Take the example of a musician. One believes that industry is too crowded, that there are no real chances left, that every rejection is a personal failure. They hold back, play it safe, and slowly start to lose their spark. But another musician, standing in the same world, sees each rejection as redirection. Every challenge becomes a new lesson. They take chances, they network, they grow, and eventually, success finds them, not because they were luckier, but because they moved with abundance, not fear. So how do you embody that abundance in your own life? Start with gratitude. Instead of always asking, what's missing? Ask, what's already here? When you appreciate what you already have, you create an energy that invites more of it. Then, act as if you already have enough. Move through life with confidence. Speak from a place of trust. Know that there are opportunities everywhere, and they're looking for people just like you. Finally, release the need to control everything. Trust that what's meant for you won't pass you by, and it won't come through force. It'll come when your actions, your energy, and your beliefs align. Have you ever caught yourself obsessing over a goal, pushing harder and harder, only to feel like you're running in circles? You check all the boxes, you do everything right, but the results just don't show up fast enough. It's exhausting, isn't it? We've been conditioned to believe that progress only comes from effort, from hustle, from never letting go. But the Stoics knew better. So, as you shift from scarcity to abundance, from force to trust, a deeper truth begins to reveal itself. One the Stoics knew well, that real growth requires patience, not pressure. We live in a culture that glorifies the hustle, where working yourself to the edge is seen as a badge of honor. You've probably heard the message loud and clear: grind hard enough, and success has no choice but to show up. But here's the truth. Real lasting success isn't born from blind effort alone. It's not about pushing constantly. It's about making the right moves, with clarity, intention, and alignment, and then giving life the space to unfold naturally. When you force things, you create resistance. It's like pulling at a tangled knot. The harder you yank, the tighter it becomes. Or think about trying to fall asleep. You can't force yourself to sleep, right? The more you try, the more restless you feel. But the moment you surrender, when you let go and trust that rest will come, it does. Effortlessly. That's how success works. That's how love grows. That's how real change happens. Yes, you still have to act. Yes, you still prepare and show up, but you must also trust the process. Imagine a farmer planting seeds. They carefully prepare the soil, water consistently, make sure there's sunlight. But then they step back. They don't dig up the seeds every day to check their progress. They trust the rhythm of nature. Because if they try to rush the harvest, they'll ruin the very thing they planted. Life is no different. We do our part, but then we must allow things to unfold in their own time. This principle applies everywhere in your career, your relationships, even your personal evolution. Have you ever met someone who tries too hard? They text constantly, SEEK, constant validation, and leave no space for the connection to breathe. Their energy feels desperate, heavy. Now contrast that with someone who's secure, grounded. They show interest, but they also give space. They don't chase, they invite. Which person are you naturally drawn to? The difference is subtle, but powerful. When you let go of control, when you stop grasping, you create room for good things to flow toward you, instead of away from you. This applies to your purpose. Maybe you've been grinding non-stop, applying for every opportunity, pushing through burnout, but nothing's clicking. What if, instead of panicking, you trusted your work was enough? What if you focused on doing your craft with excellence, on building relationships with care, and let the right doors open when they're ready? This doesn't mean you stop trying. It means you stop forcing. You take smart, focused action, and then release your grip on the outcome, as Marcos Aurelius once wrote in Meditations, "Do what you must, and let what happens, happen." That's the Stoic way. You stay devoted to what you can control, your actions, your discipline, your attitude, but you let go of the need to predict or control every result. Because deep down, you know, the more you cling, the more you suffer. But when you surrender, life softens around you. So how do you live this truth? Start by getting clear on your goal. Prepare, train, commit. Then, let go of the timeline. Let go of the obsession with how it has to happen. Finally, build unshakable trust, not just in the universe, but in yourself. Because even if things don't go the way you imagined, you have what it takes to adapt, to pivot, to rise. In the end, life isn't about controlling every outcome. It's about mastering yourself. When you stop chasing and start aligning, when you stop forcing and start flowing, that's when life starts to work. The Stoics knew this centuries ago, and now it's your turn to live it. So, take a deep breath, trust the timing, trust the process, and above all, remember, real power comes from within. Asterisk, if this message resonated with you, there's another video waiting for you right here on the screen. It will take you even deeper into the wisdom of the Stoics. Click it now and keep the journey going. And if you haven't yet, hit subscribe so you never miss another insight. Thanks for walking this path with me. This is Mind of Stoic, and I'll see you in the next one.